Hello and a very warm welcome again. We are back with a new topic today, and today we are going to read one of the important literary theory, that is structuralism, and we will be learning that how structuralism is used in other subjects as well, and what are the applications, the basic introductions, who were the key figures. So without further ado, I'll be starting with it. To begin with, so what is structuralism? Structuralism emerged as a significant intellectual movement in the 20th century, and it influenced various disciplines such as anthropology, linguistics, literary theory, and philosophy. Rooted in the idea that elements of human culture must be understood in terms of their relationship to a broader overarching system or structure. Structuralism challenges traditional approaches that focus on isolated entities or individual consciousness. So, what is the origin of structuralism? Structuralism's intellectual origins can be traced back to the work of a Swiss linguist, Ferdinand de Saussure, whose work got published in 1960, and the name of the work is Course in General Linguistics, and this book laid the foundation of structuralist thought. So moving on to the key figures, as we know, to begin with, Ferdinand de Saussure, he is the foundational figure of structuralism, and he introduced the concept of sign that compromises the signifier, that means the form of a word or phrase, and signified the concept it represents. So he is arguing that the meaning of signs arise not from the intrinsic relationship between signifier and the signified, but from their position within a system of differences. So this notion that meaning is relational rather than inherent was a radical departure from earlier linguistic theories. Again, one of the leading figures of structuralism is Claude Lévi-Strauss. Again, he is a renowned anthropologist, and he applied structuralist principles to the study of culture, and particularly in his analysis of myths and kingship systems. He posited that cultural phenomena could be understood by uncovering the underlying structures, such as binary oppositions, for example, nature versus culture, raw versus cooked, and that organize human thought across different societies. One of the leading figures, again, next we have Roland Barthes. He is a literary theorist and semiotician, and he is extending structuralism to the analysis of literature and popular culture. His work emphasized on how texts are not mere reflections of reality, but are constructed through systems of signs that can be decoded to reveal hidden meaning. So his famous essay that got published in 1967, The Death of the Author, it argued that the interpretation of a text should focus on its structure. So once the text is written, the intention of the author doesn't exist. Next we have is Jacques Lacan, and again he is a psychoanalyst, and he is interpreting Freud's theories through a structuralist lens, particularly in the concept of the mirror stage, where the self is formed through the identification with an image, what the child sees, and his notion of symbolic order, a linguistic structure that governs human subjectivity. Moving on to the core concepts of structuralism. Structures. So at the heart of structuralism is the idea that the phenomena are shaped by underlying structures, whether linguistic, social, or cultural. So these structures are not visible, often not visible, and can be uncovered through systematic analysis. Next we have is binary oppositions, and structuralists often identify binary oppositions as fundamental components of structures. So these oppositions are pairs of contrasting elements, for example, good versus evil, male versus female, black versus white, and that helps to organize meaning within a given system. Next we have is systems of differences. Meanings in structuralism is generated through differences between elements within a system. For example, in language, words derive their meaning not from the direct connection to the things they represent, but from where they are deriving the meaning from their differences from other words within a language. Next we have is the unconscious. In both Lacanian psychoanalysis and Levi-Straussian anthropology, the unconscious is seen as structured as a language governed by rules and patterns that can be analyzed in a manner similar to linguistic structures. Now, what are the applications of structuralism? As we see, first, anthropology. Levi-Strauss structural anthropology sought to identify the universal structures underlying cultural practices such as myths, rituals across different societies. His approach contrasted with the earlier ethnographic methods that emphasized cultural uniqueness. So moving on, where structuralism can be applied, definitely literary theory. Structuralist literary theory focuses on the structures underlying literary text such as narrative conventions and genre rules, and rather than analyzing literature in terms of authorial intent or historical context, structuralists examine the internal logic and systems that govern texts. Moving on to the linguistics part. Structural linguistics laid the groundwork for subsequent linguistic theories, particularly the ideas that language can be studied as systems of interrelated elements. And now this approach influenced the development of semiotics, the study of signs and symbols in communication. Next, where we see psychoanalysis. So Lacanian psychoanalysis reinterpreted Freud's idea by emphasizing that the role of language and symbolic structures in shaping the unconscious mind. So Lacan's work highlighted the ways in which human desire and identity are structured by linguistic systems. Moving on to the critiques of structuralism. First, to begin with, determinism. Now, critics argue that structuralism's focus on underlying structures can lead to determinism, and it reduces the individual agency and historical specificity to mere effects of impersonal systems. So there is a limitation of it. Next, we see historicism. Now, structuralism has been criticized for neglecting historical context and change, and treating cultural and linguistic systems as static rather than dynamic and evolving. Next we have is post-structuralism again. In the late 20th century, post-structuralist thinkers such as Jacques Derrida, Michel Foucault challenged structuralist assumptions, and particularly it emphasizes on stable structures and binary operations. So post-structuralism introduced the concepts such as deconstruction and discourse analysis, which focus on the fluidity of meaning. So there is no one specific meaning to given context in a given context, rather than the fluidity of meaning and the role of power in shaping knowledge. So to conclude with, structuralism remains a foundational perspective in humanities and social sciences, and it is offering powerful tools for analyzing underlying structures that shape human experience. While its influence has waned in the face of post-structuralist critiques, structuralism's emphasis on the relational nature of meaning and the importance of systems continue to inform contemporary thought. So here is a list of books you can go through to have a better understanding of this concept structuralism. Again, we are going to meet in the next video with a new concept. Till then, all of you, happy learning.